Remember when a tiny beep from your pocket could send you scrambling, worried about the virtual life you'd sworn to protect? The 90s brought us many fads, but nothing captured our imagination or tested our commitment quite like Tamagotchi. That little egg-shaped device with its soft buttons and pixelated screen became an obsession for millions, sneaking its way into classrooms and family road trips. You could almost feel the gentle warmth from the battery-powered shell cupped in your palm, the anticipation building with each chime. Behind those simple beeps and blinking icons was a bigger question. Could you take care of something entirely dependent on you, even if it only existed in lines of pixels? The Tamagotchi wasn't just a toy, it was a window into responsibility, companionship, and the joys and heartbreaks of a digital friendship. Lunch tables became support groups, trading tips, and telling horror stories of virtual neglect. Did yours survive the long car ride or get forgotten at the bottom of your backpack? Let's rewind to that wild moment when the world fell in love with a digital pet, because the story behind Tamagotchi is even more surprising than you might remember. As the 1990s dawned, America was in the midst of a technological and cultural shift that was impossible to overlook. Home computers were becoming common, dial-up internet was inching its way into suburban living rooms, and the idea of carrying a digital companion still seemed like something from a science fiction novel. Kids grew up with Game Boys and Walkmans glued to their hips, while parents marveled and sometimes worried about the new electronic landscape their children were exploring. But even with these innovations, nothing quite prepared the world for the arrival of Tamagotchi, a concept that in many ways emerged from the perfect storm of 90s optimism, curiosity, and a hunger for the next big thing. The roots of Tamagotchi can be traced back to Japan, the unquestioned epicenter of electronic gaming and quirky inventions during the late 80s and early 90s. While American kids were captivated by Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog, Japanese culture was teeming with toys and games that blurred the lines between real and imaginary. Pet culture in Japan, spawned from small living spaces and strict rental policies, fueled a curiosity about portable pets. And this idea began to take shape in ways no one could have predicted. The notion of an electronic pet wasn't entirely new. In fact, early attempts included digital pets on computer screens in the 80s, but nothing on the market combined accessibility, interactivity, and portability quite like what was on the horizon. Enter Akihiro Yokoi, a toy developer at Bandai, Japan's renowned toy giant. The story goes that Yokoi was inspired by the sight of a commercial showing a busy woman unable to care for her pet. What if, he wondered, someone could care for a living creature, one that needed feeding, comfort, and companionship, but without the mess and the restrictions of real animals? That what if became the seed of Tamagotchi. Not long after, he teamed up with fellow innovator Aki Maita, and together they pitched the idea to Bandai, a compact, egg-shaped device with a tiny screen, 3 simple buttons, and a digital pet that would hatch, grow, and if neglected, die. The name Tamagotchi was itself a playful blend of the Japanese words for egg, tamago, and watch, watchi, reflecting both the device's shape and its timekeeping function. It's hard to overstate just how audacious this idea was for its time. Consider that in 1996, when Tamagotchi launched in Japan, cell phones were still clunky novelties, often reserved for business people or the well-to-do. The average American child's connection to technology was through video games tethered to the family TV, or perhaps the occasional foray into the earliest forms of email. To place a digital pet, a living, needy companion, directly into the hands of a child was nothing short of revolutionary. Initially, Bandai's executives had doubts. Was the concept too strange? Would Western children embrace a pet that required near-constant attention, even during school hours? The gamble, as it turns out, would pay off in ways Bandai could hardly imagine. Within months of its Japanese release, Tamagotchi became a full-blown sensation. By the time it reached American shores in 1997, it was already shattering sales records, with stores struggling to keep up with demand. Those first shipments of Tamagotchis, nestled in neon blister packs, evaporated from toy shelves almost overnight. If you were there, you might recall scenes of parents lining up before sunrise outside Toys R Us, frantic to secure one for birthdays or holidays. You might even remember radio call-in contests giving away the elusive devices, prizes fought over with the fervor usually reserved for concert tickets. But what made Tamagotchi so irresistible, especially to American kids? Perhaps it was the blend of simplicity and novelty, a toy that wasn't just another passive distraction, but something that felt alive and responsive. You had to wake up with your Tamagotchi, feed it at regular intervals, clean its messes, and provide comfort when it beeped and called out in its unique, pixelated language. Neglect it for too long, and it wouldn't just power down. It could die. And with that came real, if virtual, heartbreak. For many, it was the first experience with the cycle of birth, care, and loss, safely contained within just a few square centimeters of plastic. It's worth pointing out a curious fact. Tamagotchi originally launched with little fanfare in America, marketed with the tagline, "The original virtual reality pet." The term virtual reality, now associated with high-tech headsets and immersive gaming, was still a novelty in the 90s, just another sign of how Tamagotchi sat at the crossroads of so many converging trends. Even more surprising, Bandai initially expected sales of no more than 200,000 units that first year. Instead, they sold over 10 million worldwide, with nearly half of those snapped up by eager American kids. Were you swept up in the craze yourself, or did you have to listen to stories second-hand as colleagues or children bemoaned the untimely demise of their digital friends? Did you keep yours clipped to your backpack or tucked in a desk drawer at work, furtively checking in during coffee breaks? The Tamagotchi quickly crossed generations as parents and teachers were drawn into the drama, sometimes frustrated by beeping interruptions, other times charmed by the devotion these gadgets inspired. Schools debated whether to ban them, citing distracting chirps and covert pet care sessions in the backs of classrooms. This, in itself, was a sign of the times. When was the last time a toy created a controversy by demanding attention on a minute-by-minute basis? But the early days of Tamagotchi fever didn't just foreshadow the rise of portable, always-on digital companions. They captured something far deeper about 90s culture. Here was a product that bridged the gap between childhood wonder and the new, slightly unsettling world of constant connectivity. It invited big questions on a small scale. How much responsibility should a child, or for that matter, an adult, take for something non-human, but dependent? What did it mean to care, if only virtually? And perhaps most importantly, why did so many of us across age groups find ourselves so emotionally attached to a handful of blinking pixels? What happened next as Tamagotchi mania spread and transformed collectibles, technology, and even school policies revealed much about the era's fascination with digital life. But before we rush ahead, consider this. Could you have guessed that such a simple toy would go on to inspire everything from smartphone apps to the way we now talk about virtual relationships? The story, much like the Tamagotchi itself, was only just beginning. As we reach the close of our stroll down memory lane, remembering the rise and reach of Tamagotchi in the 1990s, it's remarkable to look back at just how much meaning that little beeping egg packed into our lives. From its humble beginnings in Japan, inspired by a wish to offer companionship and responsibility in the palm of your hand, to its explosive arrival in American culture, Tamagotchi became so much more than a toy. It was part digital pet, part lesson plan, and part social connector, rising to prominence in a decade defined by technological leaps and the blossoming of digital childhood adventures. Over the years, we saw Tamagotchis tucked into the pockets and clipped onto backpacks of children and adults alike, drawing eyes and attention whether in school, at the dinner table, or in the car on a long drive. We navigated lunch breaks filled with tips and commiseration, inside, jokes about poop icons, and that unmistakable mix of pride and panic when caring for a stubborn or especially long-lived pet. It was a phenomenon that didn't just shape our free time, it shaped the culture of the playground, sparked debates in school offices, and inspired new kinds of attachment. But that story is more than a tale of catchy marketing or frenzied holiday shopping. Tamagotchi, in so many ways, captured the spirit of an era when technology was just beginning to weave itself into the fabric of daily life, but hadn't yet become the overwhelming force it is today. It gave us a chance, as young people, parents, and even teachers, to grapple with responsibility in a safe, gentle way. We learned what it meant to care, to nurture, and in some inevitable cases to grieve and start again. There was an innocence to it all, a reminder that caring for something, even made of pixels, could spark tenderness, frustration, and laughter in equal measure. For many, those tiny digital creatures were the first taste of what it meant to be needed, to form a routine, and to reflect on what we give our attention and love. As we look back now, it's hard not to smile at the memory of those chirps breaking the silence of a schoolroom or a family gathering. That simple act of tending to a Tamagotchi wove its way into the rituals of growing up in the 90s. Decades later, its legacy can still be felt in everything from smartphone games to the little digital notifications competing for our time. But perhaps nothing compares to those first moments of connection, pressing a button, watching an egg crack open, and feeling a world of possibilities unfold on a tiny grey screen. Do you remember your first Tamagotchi or the lengths you went to keep it happy and healthy? Did yours make it to adulthood, or did it teach you a valuable lesson in responsibility, maybe with a few digital tears along the way? Share your Tamagotchi stories in the comments below, whether funny, touching, or somewhere in between. We'd love to hear how this 90s craze touched your life. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more trips. Back to the days of our favorite fads, and spread the fun by sharing with friends who might still have their own Tamagotchi tucked away in a drawer. As we wrap up this nostalgic journey, let's hold on to the joy of those simple, pocket-sized adventures. Because even as technology moves faster and childhood keeps changing, the beeps and blips of a digital pet remind us that connection and a little bit of care were as special then as they are now.